Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so welcome everyone in this occasional Sutta class. This is the 7th installment on the Sāmaññaphala Sutta. It started about 2 years ago. We're still going. Yeah. So this is what happens when you come to Dhammaloka only occasionally, and so it takes a long time. But it's it doesn't really matter. The Dhamma is the Dhamma. It doesn't matter how much time it takes, as long as we allow ourselves to gradually absorb these teachings. That's what really matters. And the Sāmaññaphala Sutta, just to remind people, is the 2nd sutta of the Digha Nikaya, and it has one of the most full, complete descriptions of the gradual training that is found in the suttas. And it is also has this kind of historical context, which is interesting, with the King Ajātasattu, who has killed his father Bimbisara, and kind of the remorse that he has, trying to find some relief, going to the Buddha and asking this profound question about what are the fruits of the ascetic life, or the holy life, or the spiritual life. Why do people bother becoming monks and nuns? What's the point of that? And it's a very good question. I mean, of course, there must be a reason for this. And then the Buddha gives this beautiful discourse. And he starts off by talking about the kind of very obvious reasons. Reasons like, well, if you are a slave, you become free of slavery. You're no longer a slave. Yeah, so that's kind of nice. But these are not the real fruits of the spiritual life. The real fruits are the results of the path. And so then the Buddha goes into this gradual training, how you gradually change your mind, change your attitude, change your entire psychology until you finally reach those fruits. We haven't even gotten to the fruits yet. So far, all we have looked at is the path that leads up to those fruits. So it's a very full expounding of the path to awakening is what this really is about. And as we have seen, that path of awakening begins with the arising of a Buddha in the world. In other words, it begins with right view. Yeah, right view being the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. That is equivalent to a Buddha arising, because a Buddha arising really is just right view arising. That's really what it means. And then right view is available in the world. It gets passed on to other people, etc. And that's how you have the upasakas, and then the sangha of the monastics. And then from there, you then have the expounding of the gradual training, which basically is just another way of looking at the Noble Eightfold Path. You have the intention, then you have the virtue, then you have the all the factors of right effort, which is sense restraint, etc. And now we are coming close to the, first of all, we have contentment, which is kind of right effort in that area, and then we move on to meditation, the sammasati, shortly after that. So this is what is happening, and as usual, if you'd like to make comments or you want to ask anything as we go along, you're very welcome to do so, and we can have a bit of discussion or whatever. That's kind of one of the nice things about these days. Yeah, we have a bit more interaction than we normally have, and I think that's actually quite nice and quite useful. So we have now come to the passage on contentment, and contentment in Pali is santuti. So we have a venerable santuti in the Kusala Vihara, and so that's nice. It's a nice name because it kind of aspires to one of the higher qualities of the Buddhist path. And this word contentment is quite important in the suttas. You find it in a number of places. You find it here in the gradual training. You find it as some of the basic qualities that ensure that you're practicing the Dhamma. There's a place where monastics would go to the Buddha and they would ask him to give a brief teaching. Yeah, give me a brief teaching so I can go off into seclusion and practice the Dhamma. And the Buddha says, well, you should remember that these are these qualities. This is the Dhamma, this is the Vinaya, this is the teacher's dispensation. Yeah? When you have these qualities, you know that you are kind of practicing the Dhamma. And one of these qualities is contentment. Contentment is like one of the crucial core foundational factors of the noble, of what it means to be practicing the spiritual life. It's the exact opposite of the worldly life. The worldly life is always about more, it's never really being satisfied. More status, more bigger bank account, more personal belongings, more relationships, more fame, more whatever. Yeah, all of these worldly things that we always want more of. And in Buddhism, it's the opposite. It's about contentment. And what is interesting about contentment is that it is not just that you are content about the worldly things and you don't need more worldly things, but the contentment also goes to the spiritual path itself. So you are content with where you're at, in a way. When you sit, especially when you do your meditation practice, you are content with what you have. You don't always look forward to the next stage or the next thing. And so this is kind of one of those strange trade-offs on the Buddhist path, that on the one hand you want to practice, and so in that sense you are kind of leaning towards something more, leaning towards higher attainments, but the way, one of the qualities that actually lead to deeper qualities is kind of paradoxically enough contentment. So when you are content, that is how you move forward in a weird way, right? So you know that this will lead forward, but you don't have a desire for these things to arise because you know that's counterproductive. So contentment leads forward, leads onwards. And this is especially true in meditation practice, where you don't want the mind to kind of, as Ajahn Brahmali always says, you don't want to wait in the future, you want to wait in the present. And that is the idea of the right kind of contentment. So this is contentment. Contentment is also one of what is called the Mahapurisa Vitakka. The Mahapurisa Vitakka, for those of you who are not experts in Pali, that means Mahapurisa, the great person, and Vitakka is thought. So the thoughts of a great person is what this means. And the thoughts of a great person, one of those thoughts is contentment. So and if you look at those 8, there's a sutta called the 8 thoughts of a great person, and if you look at those thoughts, some of them are like nippapansha. Nippapansha means no papansha, none of the proliferation that we normally have. And of course that proliferation is rooted in the sense of self, the idea of an I. And so so when we talk about the Mahapurisa Vitakka, we're talking about some very elevated qualities. These are the qualities of the arahants. These are the qualities of the awakened beings in the world. And so contentment is one of those qualities. And so when you have contentment, you are leaning towards those qualities that the arahants in the world have. They are content. They're not looking for more. They are satisfied with whatever is there. And this is kind of one of those strange things that you find many places in the suttas, that when you develop some of the foundational qualities on the path, you are, in a sense, already kind of within that range of awakening. There are similar kind of qualities as the awakened people have, except that they haven't been developed fully yet. But there are similar kind of, the mind is kind of leaning in that direction. And that's something that should inspire you. When you feel some of these qualities arise in you, you are content, you're just happy with whatever you have, you don't really want to go anywhere. Or you're feeling generosity. Generosity is a fairly, in some ways, quite, everybody has some degree of generosity in their life. But when you feel that feeling of wanting to give, wanting to share with others, and you see the beauty in that, that is again similar to the qualities of the awakened ones. And the point I have often made is that the way that generosity is described in the suttas is actually similar to the Third Noble Truth. Third Noble Truth, of course, being the ending of craving and being arahantship and awakening itself. And so the similarities here are across the board. And this is kind of, to me very encouraging when you look at it in that way. So here there is a clear kind of connection to some very high qualities. So contentment, So let's just have a quick look. It's a very short passage in the sutta to describe contentment, but it's very beautifully described. And some of you will know this passage very well, but nevertheless, let's have a look at it again. And so this is how it goes. And how is a mendicant content? It's when a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body, and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. Yeah, this is all you have as a mendicant, ideally. Not there are few mendicants who only have these things, it has to be said, especially maybe in the present day. It's very rare, but hopefully we are leaning at least in that direction, not too far away from it. Yeah, so just bowl and robe is really what this is saying, and the ideal is to have that and have nothing more. And it's a beautiful kind of idea because it sets you free. It means that you have no encumbrances anywhere. You have no attachments anywhere. There's nothing to hold you, to bind you to a place, or hold you down, or fetter you, or stick you. You have to be in Perth or whatever. Yeah, you can kind of, any day you can just go off and disappear into the bush, and no one ever sees you again. That was it. And it's kind of interesting. There are a couple of suttas like that. These are found in the Digha Nikaya. And there's a sutta of this monk, and he started to become famous. People started to recognize him. He came back after being away for a long time. He came back, and people wanted to talk to him, and he became famous. And then, as soon as he started to kind of get a bit famous, he just disappeared. And I never saw him again, according to that sutta. And it's kind of nice, yeah. How would you feel if one day Ajahn Brahm just disappeared and he never saw him again? I think it's too late for Ajahn Brahm, probably not going to happen. But it's kind of, you just go off because you know you have more to do. I think for Ajahn Brahm it would be irresponsible because of all the kind of commitments he has. But if you are a junior monk, one of the junior monks, like Venerable Vimoka, one day he feels too much fame. Okay, I'm going to disappear, go off into the bush. Yeah, it's kind of a nice idea. And then there you are, go off on the bebonement track or whatever it is. And so this is contentment, having a very, very simple life. But it's not just for monastics. Here we're talking about what it is like for being a mendicant, but it is for lay people as well, obviously, upasikas, to be content with what you have, not to kind of always desire more, always leaning towards all the worldly things. After a while, you understand the limits of all these worldly things. You understand that they will never give you satisfaction. Why? Because something is missing inside. And when something is missing inside, when there's a psychological kind of hole, a psychological gap or something missing, regardless of how many external things you try to plug that gap with, you know there's never going to find that satisfaction. The only way you're going to find psychological completeness, fulfillment, is by doing something psychological. The external things are always just going to be band-aids. And this is why people never find that satisfaction in the world through this kind of pursuit. So this is it too cold in here? Are people all right? Yeah, people okay? Okay, I hear some coughing. I become concerned when I hear so much coughing around, coughing here, coughing there. So let us know if it is too cold. So you understand the limits of what ordinary worldly things can do for you, and then you don't pursue them anymore. Instead, you start to pursue those things that actually do make a difference, and that is a spiritual path. That is where that contentment can be found. Instead of endlessly searching for the impossible, the famous simile of Ajahn Chah, searching for the tortoise with a moustache. Tortoises don't have moustaches. End of story, right? Stop searching for the impossible, and then you kind of you are happy with what you have, and you are content with what you have, and you stop searching in that area. And that is kind of what is at stake here. So that is the first level of contentment. Okay, I have enough, I get by. Of course, if you don't have enough, then you cannot be fully content, right? So then you have to kind of work for it or whatever. But if you have enough, okay, I can live on this, I won't starve. But there's a second level to contentment. And that is the idea of actually giving things up, letting go of things. One of the strange things, I went out this morning, I went to the beach. It's true, actually. Someone invited me to have breakfast, and we had breakfast in one of these little restaurants on the beach. And I thought I needed to talk to these people, so I thought it was a good idea to do that. So I went out to the beach. And I thought last time I went, it was really quiet early in the morning. And I forgot that was during the winter. In the winter, there's no one on the beach. Now it was the middle of summer. There was people everywhere, 6 a.m. It was just packed with surfers and what have you, everywhere already. And I was a bit, okay, whatever. I'm here now, so too late, do anything about it. And so we went out there and we talked a little bit about this idea of having too many things. And I was talking a little bit about my own mother. And I said, she lives in 2 different places, and she moves between these 2 different places. And I tried to tell her, maybe, there'll be less disturbance if you only have one place and have to go back and forth all the time. Less dealings, less problems to look after. It will simplify life a lot. Can't do it. Yeah, it's too difficult. Why? Because holding on, past memories, all of these kind of things. Okay, so that's fine. Of course, that's no problem. If that's the way you want to live, you have to live like that. So the problem in life is very often we hold on to all of these things that actually are very burdensome, actually are really problematic. And I was thinking in the car that one of some of the greatest things about being a monastic is not to own a house, not to have a mortgage, not to have a bank account. Yeah, being free of money is one of the greatest things people can experience. Not having all those burdens that are involved with transactions and all of these kind of things. It's an incredible hassle. Yeah, and so it's such a beautiful way. This is one of the things. And I think this is very counter to how many people think. But this is one of the great things about the monastic life, giving up all of these things that encumber you, that tie you down, that bind you to this world. And you have very few problems, very few things to deal with, at least personal problems. Okay, still have to deal with the Buddha society and those kind of things, but that's kind of good things, that positive things that actually develop you in a positive way. And so then sometimes this kind of second degree of contentment, first of all, you're content with what you have, but then actually you want to reduce your burdens and to be content with less, having fewer things, less and less and less. And the ultimate expression of that is this expression you see right here in the sutta: be content with just robes and a bowl and nothing more than that. Walking just around, people looking after you. And it's such a beautiful thing that you can walk around in the world as a monastic, bring your bowl with you, and people will support you. People will look after you. Even if you are in a completely non-Buddhist country like Australia, you cannot really call it a Buddhist country at all, and yet sometimes people will help you. I guarantee you walk through the streets of Perth, there will be somebody who is not a Buddhist, and they will give you something. We had a monk who did that a few years ago, just walking through the CBD of Perth, and there were people kind of giving him things. I think there was even a homeless person who wanted to give him an apple or something like that. Isn't that nice? The homeless person has more than you, so they give you something. There's something really kind of beautiful about that. It's something it opens up something very nice. So should you take that apple from the homeless person? Maybe not, or maybe you give it straight back or something. I don't know what you would do, but anyway. And so this is kind of the something about, when you have the robes and a shaven head, people understand automatically what it is about, and they will support you because of that. And you can live a very simple life as a consequence of that. And that's very inspiring, very interesting. It opens people's eyes. Here is someone who lives the simplest life possible, and yet, despite that, or maybe because of that, they are happier than almost anyone else in the world. What a marvelous example that is. And so whenever you go, ideally, you set out only taking these things. The bowl and the robes. Alms food here is basically just a way of saying bowl. There is a In the other schools of Buddhism, they actually mention the bowl here specifically, in addition to alms food, and I think it's kind of implied into what we are seeing here. Just have an idea what time it is. Okay, so okay, let's. Actually, one thing I didn't mention, which I should also mention very briefly, is that contentment here. We have seen before this passage on contentment, we have seen the sense restraint formula, then we have seen the formula on mindfulness and clear comprehension, the Sati Sampajanya formula. These are standard formulas in the suttas, in the gradual training. And then comes contentment. But what is interesting here is that contentment does not always appear in this place. In fact, usually it appears before sense restraint rather than after sense restraint and after mindfulness and clear comprehension. And I looked up the parallel suttas in some of the other traditions, and they also tend to have contentment before sense restraint. And so I think that is actually the right position for it. I should have mentioned this first, but it slipped my mind, I suppose. So that is kind of where it belongs. And why is that? Why does it belong there? And the reason, I would say, is because the path goes, first of all, you are virtuous. You have all the virtues of speech and of body. You are compassionate and you don't do bad things towards other people by speech or body. And you have all the minor virtues also mentioned there. There's a whole sequence of various kinds of virtues. And then, once all those ordinary virtues of body and speech are in place, well, at that point, you have to start developing the mind. That's the next stage, the mind that needs to be developed. And the beginning of the development of the mind cannot really be sense restraint, because it will be impossible to restrain your senses unless you are reasonably content. If you are full of desires and things, and you want more, and you haven't understood anything about contentment, you can't restrain the senses, which is actually the overcoming of the desires and the aversions in the world. So you have to the sequence matters a little bit. So contentment here is really the beginning of the morality of the mind. When you have contentment, it means that your desires are already quite low. You don't have many desires. Ill will, don't have much ill will, because ill will often goes with the desires in the world. And so your mind is already quite even. And because your mind is quite even, and this kind of big desires and aversions and ill wills of the world, they are largely gone already. So that basically the words used in the sense restraint formula are similar to this kind of this idea of overcoming these defilements. So once you have that evenness of the mind, then you go to sense restraint, because then you have the foundation of contentment to enable you to restrain the senses. Because you're already content, it's quite easy to restrain the senses. You know, actually you don't want these things anyway, so why should desire arise? So if you have a profound understanding of contentment, then if you see something nice, you think, no, okay, forget it. No need for desire, no need for aversion about this. And then you can let it go much more easily. So understand the idea of contentment, and then it actually leads to natural sense restraint. It also leads naturally to sati sampajanya, the mindfulness and clear comprehension, because that too is a similar idea of knowing the purpose of what you're doing. You're not doing things for the purpose of more, for the purpose of desire and to fulfill your desires, but you're doing everything you do, you're doing for the purpose of fulfilling the spiritual path. That is what it is about, sati sampajanya. So contentment really, I think, really belongs there, but it doesn't matter so much, because after all, contentment is something that you can take deeper and deeper and deeper on the path. And so here it's not wrong to have it here either. So you can see how it fits in many places. Anyway, so coming back to what it says here, so wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. They are like a bird. Wherever it flies, wings are its only burden. Yeah, the only burden of a bird are the wings. And you might think, how can the wings be a burden? Surely the bird needs the wings. And that's kind of the point. The other point is that you need your ball and the robe. So in a sense, they're not really a burden. And yet anything you have to have, anything which is more than zero, is a burden. Yeah. If you haven't got zero yet, you still have some burdens. So in that sense, there are burdens because you have to look after them to some extent. You have to look after your wings. Yeah, bird, they will wash their wings and clean them in a little bird bath and these kind of things. In the same way, you have to wash your robe sometimes. I don't wash my robe very often, but occasionally I have to. Sometimes if I smell a bit, please let me know, because I'm lazy when it comes to washing my robes. I reckon that I don't know, I'm not really. The robe lasts longer, yeah, if you don't wash it too often, so I don't wash it very often. But you have to, so sometimes you have to wash it. You obviously have to wash your ball every day. You can't wash your ball once a month, that would be pretty terrible. And so you have to do all of these kind of things. There is some little degree of burden there with these things, but it's very small. And they are the kind of minimum requirements to be able to live properly. So wherever the bird flies, its wings as its only burden. And of course, the simile here of the bird is not a random simile. It is not just because the Buddha just uses any old simile. Almost everything the Buddha does is very pointed. It has a very clear purpose. And of course, the idea here, as I understand it, is that the bird is free. Yeah, the bird is not really hindered. It can go almost anywhere. Yeah, the world is its oyster. It can travel around. Yeah, it can go this direction, that direction. There's nothing really to limit the bird. Yeah, the only burden, the only thing that ties it down is like its wings in a sense, and that doesn't really tie it down at all. And the same way with the monk, yeah, you can go everywhere, wherever you want, whatever direction. And the idea with being able to go in any direction is that it allows you to find suitable places to settle down for a while, to meditate for a while, to hang out. You find a beautiful place in the forest, like when the Buddha to be, just before his awakening, he went to Uruvela. Uruvela is what is now Bodh Gaya, and he finds an even ground, even piece of land with a river nearby for bathing and a village close by for alms resort, a beautiful place shaded by the trees. It's a beautiful description of the place where the Buddha sat down. And that is kind of, you're looking for these places in the world that are suitable for meditation practice. Personally, I think Bodhinyana Monastery is really, really suitable because we have these kutis in the forest and you just disappear. You just go back. And actually it's great for seclusion and for meditation. But Uruvela may be even better. But don't go to Uruvela in the present day. It's not quiet anymore. Uruvela now is like a big circus with lots of people and lots of business and lots of things happening and loud noises and everything. You can go there a little bit just to check out where the Buddha was awakened, but the atmosphere is largely gone because of all the activity and things, which is a bit of a shame. So when the Buddha says in the suttas that you should go to the 4 holy places, I think today he might have suggested other places. He might have said, don't go to those places, go to these ones instead. Maybe. It's very hard to know what the Buddha would have said, and I should not pretend at all to know what he would have said. But he might not have approved of the places the way he did at that time. And so this kind of opens up the possibilities, and of course, one of the nice things about the Buddha, when you see that description in the suttas of Uruvela, what it makes you think of is the middle way. It is not a harsh place. It's a gentle place, but it is secluded. It's away in the forest, but it's gentle. It's an even place in the shade with the river nearby and a village nearby for alms. It's kind of a suitable place for a monastic. And so this is the same thing that, we do. You find a suitable place. Why? Because you don't have any burdens that tie you down. Like that very famous monk that we have on the wall at Bodhinyana Monastery, that Venerable Jnana Vimala, the German monk. He actually recently we had a Jnana Loka, was I don't know if any one of you met him. He's a Sri Lankan monk who was visiting, and he actually looked after and stayed with Bodhidharma Vimala for a while. He just came to visit Bodhidharma Monastery. He stayed with us for a few days. It seemed like a very, very nice monk, I have to admit, really, really pleasant. So I asked him about Bodhidharma Vimala, and he did say he was a very inspiring monk, but very simple. He didn't want any disciples. So I asked him, were you a disciple of Jnana Vimala? He said no, because he didn't want any disciples. So that's kind of the simple life, no attachments, nothing to hold you back. And he would live this kind of lifestyle, completely unencumbered, just wandering around the island of Sri Lanka for 30 years, never really staying in any place for long. For the rains retreat, settling down for 3 months, and otherwise wandering, finding a nice grove, finding a beautiful place. There's not so beautiful places in Sri Lanka. I've been there several times, and it's kind of a delightful place with the hills and the kind of cool climate in the kind of higher country, and you can see why people might find that very suitable for meditation, etc. And Sri Lanka, even today, has a lot of this sort of forest that in many other countries has been completely logged and doesn't exist anymore. So this is the idea of having that freedom. When you are content, it gives rise to this kind of freedom of the mind, freedom of the body. You can do what you want. You have nothing to encumber the mind anymore. The mind is not held back by all of these things that you have to do and you have to look after. In the same way, a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body, and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out, taking only these things. That is how a mendicant is content. So, what do you think about this? Any thoughts about this? Any complaints about this? Eddie, okay, please make it reasonably short, Eddie, if you can.
Ajahn Brahmali.
Yeah.
When I first started Buddhism, there was this Buddhist saying, health is the greatest wealth, contentment is the greatest happiness. Okay, you got it?
It's the greatest wealth.
I stick to it still, okay?
Yeah.
And then the last few years, someone, I think they hijacked it, they changed it to be health is the greatest happiness, contentment is the greatest wealth. Whatever it is, okay, but I choose happiness. It's a very powerful practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the greatest,
Which verse is it? It's in the Dhammapada.
I think it's the Dhammapada. I think it started with health is the greatest wealth. I always remember in my mind, contentment is the greatest. I still stick to that. Okay, contentment is the greatest happiness.
I think
so. It's the greatest. It's a very powerful practice, isn't it?
I think it is. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Actually, that's what I think. I think so.
But they changed only last 2 years.
What do other people think? That's what I recall. Yeah. Which one? It's the Magandhya Sutta. Majjhima 75. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I won't look it up now, Eddie, but I'm pretty sure. And I think the reason for that is there is actually a very close connection between those two ideas, wealth and contentment. And I thought of mentioning it, but I decided not to mention it. But the idea is that if you haven't got enough wealth, if you're always looking for more, then regardless of how wealthy you are, it means that you are not satisfied. You want more. You're still looking. But the moment you're content, you don't need to look anymore. You have enough wealth, and so contentment is the highest wealth. Because now you don't need any more. You have enough. You are satisfied. But if you're not satisfied, regardless of how rich you are, you're still kind of searching, still looking. And so I think there is a connection there between the idea of contentment and wealth.
So that's a very high practice in Ajahn Brahmali.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very beautiful. Yeah. Does anyone else want to say anything about?
I think the sutta I read is health is the greatest gain.
Yeah.
Contentment is the greatest wealth.
Right. Yeah. So we agree on that one. Yeah.
Nirvana is the greatest bliss.
Yeah. Right. So I think it's one of the verses in Dhammapada which goes like that. Yeah. Health is the greatest gain or something like that. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Any other comments about contentment? Or are you all content already? No need to look for any more questions. Everyone okay? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, contentment and equanimity are closely connected to each other, yeah. But I think, equanimity is usually a higher kind of faculty. Usually it's higher. They consider two faculties. Equanimity is the lower and the higher equanimity. The lower one is like sense restraint and contentment. And the higher one is like the equanimity of the fourth jhana or the Brahma Viharas, where you kind of are everything, basically, you're equanimous about everything in the whole world. And you're kind of just looking on, observing everything completely neutrally, without zero attachments, essentially. Yeah. Okay. Content. Yeah. Going. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm glad you are so content. So you are already practicing this path. So if you're practicing already, we should go on to the next one, right? Because you already got contentment. So, okay. So see what happens next. So now we come to the giving up of the hindrances, the nivarana. So this is kind of a very important part of this sutta and the gradual training. Nivarana is the word for the hindrances. Now, let us have it. This doesn't come straight away. So let's have a look a little bit at what comes next before I talk a little bit generally about the hindrances. Okay, so when they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, this noble sense restraint, this noble mindfulness and situational awareness, and this noble contentment. So this is what we have seen so far, because it's been so long between the various parts of this discourse. It's kind of gone into the past, but we have been through all of these categories already. So you have this entire spectrum. This is Kevala Sila Kanda. Kevala, the full group, all the various aspects of Sila. This is kind of why he translated it as spectrum, because you have all the aspects of it. You have the whole sense restraint, mindfulness and situational awareness, and contentment. The first thing to notice here is that it is called noble. This is the Arya. So it is called noble. First of all, there's many reasons, I think, why these words like noble is used here. But one reason why it is called noble is because these are the qualities you expect the noble ones to have. So this is what the Aryas have. The Aryas will always be ethical. They will always have a high degree of restraint. They will tend to be content. They will have all of these factors already. And so that's why these are noble qualities. And for that reason, when we have them, they are also noble. Of course, for most people, it goes a bit up and down. Because it goes up and down. Sometimes you are noble, sometimes you're really noble, sometimes you are super duper noble, but then you are a little bit less noble, and then you are outright ignoble sometimes. The mind goes between ignoble and noble, kind of these waves. And even though most people in the Buddhist society tend to be pretty noble, sometimes even here, mind can go a little bit down to ignoble sometimes. And so, but that's a beautiful idea, and this is, I don't know, there's something about this that makes it very attractive. Who doesn't want to be noble? There's something, noble means that you are kind of, there's something about your mind that is lifted up, that is higher than the ordinary. You're not kind of dragging down the bottom, you're kind of uplifted. There's nobility. There's something beautiful going on there. And so, this is the idea here. So noble is the quality of the mind of the Aryas. But noble also means that this is like ennobling. It makes you noble if you practice these things. They are noble in their own right, but they also lead to more nobility down the track, and they lead to kind of these very, very high qualities down the track. And this is another reason why these things are called noble. So anyone who wants to kind of, to have self-esteem and be more noble, a noble person, well, this is how to be a real noble, not a kind of, fake noble or whatever you want to call it. So these are the things. And now the second thing to notice about this is that these are the things we should do, as a foundation. What comes next is meditation practice. This is where the hindrances are given up. This is the foundation for meditation practice. And so if you wonder why your meditation isn't super duper powerful all the time, it's because you haven't really fulfilled all of these stages enough. That's really the reason. And as you can imagine, fulfilling this is actually quite demanding. This is a very demanding course of mental development and development of the body and the speech and everything. It is very demanding. If you fulfill all of this, your mind will be incredibly pure. You will have very, very few defilements left. You will have mostly metta and compassion all the time. That's basically what you will have if you fulfill this. One way of fulfilling much of this without having to kind of think too much about what all of these things are is to have a lot of metta and compassion in your life. If you have a general sense of compassion for people and animals in the world, and that is how you live your life, if you have a lot of metta, seeing the good qualities in people around you, forgiving them for their weaknesses, and this is kind of your main way of living, then you have largely fulfilled these things. Then you don't have to worry too much about all the details here. And I think this is one of the things that many people should do. Practice more the sense of compassion, more metta, seeing good qualities, being more forgiving with all of these things. And as it says in the Metta Anisangsa Sutta, the benefits of metta, it says that one who has developed metta fully, completely gains samadhi easily. That is precisely for this reason, because it actually fulfills all of these aspects on the path. So if you wonder what to do, those are some kind of hints about that. And of course, there's also on top of that, there is the idea of right view. So by having metta and compassion, in a sense, you are fulfilling the sila aspect. And by having right view, well, you are seeing the world in a way that leads to samadhi and leads to deep meditation. So these are the foundations of the path. Now, based on these foundations, what happens next? What happens next is the following. They frequent a secluded lodging. A wilderness, the foot of a tree, a hill, a ravine, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, a forest, the open air, a heap of straw. You frequent a secluded lodging. So the idea here is the moment you see frequenting a secluded lodging, you know we're talking about meditation practice, because that's what meditation is about. Seeking a secluded lodging. And so what does that mean? And what it means is that sometimes ideally for a monastic, it means that you live in the kuti in the forest. It can mean even going into the forest or the jungle by yourself for weeks and even months at a time. If your meditation is going really, really well, the better your meditation, the greater your ability to deal with seclusion. But it means withdrawing from the world. That's really what it means. Especially from the world of impressions, the city life, people. People is basically the main issue here. That's why you withdraw into a secluded lodging in the wilderness, as it says here. And you know that when we talk about this, we're dealing with meditation practice. We're coming to Satipatthana. In fact, we're going even not just ordinary Satipatthana, but Satipatthana in a slightly more profound way. The Anapanasati, the deeper aspect of Satipatthana, is really what we're talking about here. So real meditation happens in seclusion. That's where the depth can be found. If you are too much in society, it is much more difficult to find the depth of meditation. And this is one reason why the monastic life is more ideal than lay life, because it gives you more access to those secluded lodgings. And that's why we have meditation centers, to enable you to kind of come a little bit closer to the idea of a secluded lodging. That's why you can come and live in the monastery, and you can test out your meditation and see how things go when you get a more secluded place to stay. So what are these secluded lodgings? Well, they are as follows. A wilderness, that makes sense. The root of a tree, but the root of a tree, not just any tree, but a tree that is far away, somewhere far away. Why the root of a tree? Well, because these large trees that you find in the tropics, they have they can almost be like little houses, under these trees. And so it's a very suitable place to do meditation practice. A hill, a hill that is kind of far away, a ravine, a mountain cave, like the Inda Sala Guha that we just visited in India. That was really a really cool cave. And a very, very wild, a charnel ground. A charnel ground, usually you get left on a charnel ground because most people don't want to hang out in charnel grounds. It's a place where you burn corpses and that sort of thing. So most people kind of disappear, especially at night. A forest, the open air, and a heap of straw. So the point here, all of these things are far away places. But the interesting one here to me is the last one, the heap of straw. Isn't that kind of nice? A heap of straw. It sounds like some kind of child bouncing around in a heap of straw, kind of enjoying themselves. And the idea here is that a heap of straw, of course, is going to be quite comfortable. That's kind of the idea here. And so again, this is to me like a reminder of this idea of the middle path. You create a comfortable seat for yourself so you can let go of the body, and then you can allow the mind to kind of come to the fore and the mind to be the main thing. So the heap of straw here to me again suggests this idea of the middle way, where the body is at ease, the body is comfortable, but you're not indulging. You don't indulge usually on the heap of straw. You just sit down and you kind of have your backside is comfortable, etc. That's kind of the idea here. So it's palala punja is the Pali word, and it kind of stands out. It's not the sort of thing you think of when you think of a secluded place, right? And there must be a reason why it is put in there, and I think maybe that is the reason, to again show the idea of the middle way in a sense. Okay, so you frequent a secluded lodging, so you hang out in a secluded lodging. Frequent means that you have to go into the village for alms, but outside of that alms round, then you hang out in this secluded lodging. Then after the meal, they return from alms round, sit down cross-legged, set their body straight, and establish mindfulness in their presence. So, so after the meal, it's a little bit interesting. I wondered why it says after the meal. Why is that specified? Because it's not kind of immediately obvious. Should you not always do this? What is special about after the meal? And I think the answer might be that after the meal, you often have your meal quite early. You go for alms round maybe in the morning. So really then the whole day is in front of you. And so you start your meditation then after the meal. Straight to as soon as possible, as soon as you can. If it is in the hot season, you might lie down for a while, and even the Buddha actually would lie down for a while in the hot season. But otherwise, you can start your meditation straight away. That's kind of when it really starts, in a sense. That might be the reason why that is the case. The other reason might be that, after the meal, ideally you should not really lie down. Ideally, you should, if you can, you should start your meditation straight away. And in other words, you should not eat so much that you have to necessarily rest, etc., etc. And then you can kind of start it straight away. All of these little things, in my opinion, have a meaning. They are there for a purpose. When the Buddha says after the meal, there is a reason for that. And sometimes you are not sharp enough to pick it up. Why does it say this? And you kind of don't even think that thought. Why? But we should ask that thought more often. Why? What is that doing there? Why? How is this hanging together? What is the point of this? And I think that is part of it. And then you have this famous phrase here, sitting down cross-legged, palankang nisiditva, or nisidati. So this is kind of the traditional meditation posture. You don't have to do that, but that is the traditional way of sitting. So this shows you that now you're doing sitting meditation. Yeah, this is serious meditation. This is the real samatha meditation. This is where you watch the breath. The breath meditation is always starts in this way with exactly this kind of phrasing. And so you can take it that now we are really probably talking about breath meditation, or maybe some other meditations as well. But we're talking about real meditation practice, and not just contemplation or whatever. Set your body straight, ujjukayang panidaya, the body is straight. Again, at the right time, at the right place, depending a bit on how tired you are or whatever, but when you are ready, then the body kind of tends to be straight. And then you establish mindfulness in your presence, or you establish mindfulness in front of you, or you just establish mindfulness, but in the here and now. That's kind of the idea here. The Pali word parimukkang means like around the mouth, or somewhere around the face. So this is kind of the idea of here about in your presence. This is Bhante Sujatā's translation of this phrase that is quite hard to translate into the English language. So now we are ready for the meditation practice. And that is a very interesting piece of information, because if you look at what comes afterwards is giving up the 5 hindrances. And so it just says that you give up the 5 hindrances, but it doesn't give the context for how you do that. And so it isn't quite obvious. Well, what does it mean? Does it just mean that you sit down, okay, now I reflect and give up the 5 hindrances? What exactly does it mean? But now you know what it means. What it means is that you practice meditation, and through that meditation practice, the 5 hindrances just disappear. That is the nature of these hindrances. If you practice meditation in the right way, they will go, they will disappear. Why is that? This is kind of a really important point. Why is it that the hindrances are overcome? Let's say you're just watching the breath, you're doing nothing else. Don't have to actually actively overcome them. If you are able to watch the breath, the hindrances actually will decline. And the reason for that is because the hindrances, the defilements of the mind, the only way that they are sustained, you have to fuel them. If you take away the fuel, then they cannot sustain themselves. And so desire needs to be sustained by thinking about the object of the desire. If that object is in your mind, the desire will be there. But if you are watching the breath, it means that you are not looking at the object of any desirable thing, the breath is kind of desirable, but that's a different kind of desire, and then you are reducing the fuel or the nutriment for the sensual desire, and so it all comes down. It disappears. The same thing with ill will, vyapada. Vyapada, ill will, is sustained. Why? Because you are thinking about this person you find difficult. Comes back to your mind. The ill will is sustained. But if you are able to sustain the breath meditation, then the ill will gradually disappear. It will decline, and eventually it will be gone completely, because you're not allowing the source, the nutriment of the ill will to kind of to be there, and you're watching the breath instead. And so the meditation practice by itself, if it works rightly, will overcome these 5 hindrances. That is kind of one of the very interesting points here about this sutta. And we know it's meditation because of these things that we are seeing here, right here. So this is the first point. The second point, which is I think is very interesting here and worthy of note, is that the 5 hindrances are only talked about at this point. Now we have gone a long, long way. We have kind of purified the mind to a very, very high degree. You have all this spectrum of various kind of good qualities. You are content, you have sense restraint, all of these kind of things. You probably have a lot of metta and compassion. Your mind is full of good qualities. And only now does the sutta talk about sense restraint. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that, only now does it talk about the 5 hindrances. What does that mean? Well, it means that when we talk about the 5 hindrances, they are refined defilements of the mind. That's really what it means. And there is sutta, especially one sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, where the 5 hindrances are called upakilesa. That's what they're called. And the upakilesas, like in the Upakilesa Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 128, refer to refined defilements of the mind. The position here of the 5 hindrances, again, we are dealing with refined defilements. All the coarse ones have been left behind a long time ago. And so they are refined defilements of the mind. And this is very interesting and very important to understand. And one of the reasons why it is interesting is because earlier on, when there are defilements, we use sense restraint, we use all of these kind of things. And then there's only talk about 2 defilements really here, the desire and the aversion, or the desire and the ill will. These are the 2 defilements coming again and again on the path. Only now are we dealing with 5 different defilements. And so what that means is that the main focus in our practice when it comes to defilements should be on those first 2. The ill will and the desire. Yeah? Those are the main ones that we deal with all the way along the path. Only when we come to meditation practice, only when you come to being very at ease and content with the breath, only when the nimittas start to arise, that is where these other defilements really start to matter. So the focus should be on the first 2 ones. So if you feel very tired or whatever, don't try to overcome the tiredness. You're looking in the wrong place. The reason why you're tired is for all other kinds of reasons. Don't try to deal with it in the wrong way. That's what I'm saying. Yeah? Don't try those tricks of Mahamoggallana in one of the suttas where he says, pull your earlobe. If you're going to pull your earlobe, and that's going to come and have an effect, you have to be very refined kind of tiredness. Yeah? Otherwise it's not going to work. Or put some water in your eyes. I think that's kind of the other one. But again, these things only work if it's quite refined. Very often, if that tiredness comes from desires or ill will, or because you've been working too hard or whatever, then actually, no, you have to do it in a different way. Not work directly with those defilements, but work with those 2 main ones that are the source of basically the other defilements. Only when it comes to deep meditation do we kind of deal with these defilements, the 5 defilements in a broader sense. So I think this is a kind of very important point because it allows us to focus on what really matters on the path. Yeah? The desire, the ill will, these are the 2 big kind of problems, both for meditation but also for all the other aspects of the path. And then when we come to meditation practice, then these 5 hindrances really come to the fore, and then we can kind of deal with all of them and understand how to deal with them. So yes, so that is the hindrances. They are about refined matters and not about the coarse ones. The coarse ones have already been dealt with at this particular point. So now we are about to embark on the actual 5 hindrances. So before I embark on those and look at those, any comments so far? Anyone has any perplexity or doubt or uncertainty that they would like to get clarified?
Sorry, Ajahn Brahmali, me again. You know this sutta, as you mentioned, and in the screen down there, the Buddha was addressing the monks. The monks.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I would like in the forest, in the cave,
Yeah.
like a root of a tree, all these dwellings, all these things, and food to eat, and then the what I call the mindfulness, Okay, yeah. So that's Buddha's time, okay. But I was just thinking of us now here, all of us here, in this contemporary world, Okay, yeah. In fact, I was only last night, in the Facebook, I just tell you, there was this guy, he was saying, and then it's relating to all this, I think, if, he said, I was saying, if we have clean water, we have a bed to sleep on, okay, a place to stay, this thing, okay, and we have food to eat, we should be considered ourselves lucky, because in the world, a lot of people, they don't have this. no clean water, nothing, No. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, we should all learn to be contented.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if
We agree.
wanting
Yeah.
more and more, it doesn't help.
Yeah, we
it's just
agree.
that I
Good.
reflect on that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
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 Sorry.
Yeah, no, indeed, it's good to be contented, especially, and you're right, if you reflect like that, and that you are fortunate to have even these basic things, then it makes you more contented, and you're happy with that, and you don't search for anything more, and then that supports the whole meditation and everything, So, yes, yeah. So, yeah.
As well as being grateful.
Yeah, it's grateful, great gratitude and contentment. I think these qualities go together as well, they are kind of support each other, so absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Last time during the discussion, long time ago, of course, that you mentioned that situational awareness, sati sampajanna, is not really meditation. True meditation comes afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
And this paragraph, top part, proves your...
It proves, doesn't it?
It proves, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very nicely proves what you said.
Yeah.
And that it says after these,
Yep.
after ethics, after situational awareness, after practicing all that, sense restraint, then after the meal you go and sit down, and you also mentioned that long discussion that time that it's not when sleeping, but it is about sleeping.
Yeah, right. Wow, you're good, Ananda. That's amazing. You really have it.
I think that makes a big difference.
It does.
It doesn't. And you said you were going to contact Bhante Sujato. I just checked this morning. It hasn't been changed.
I did contact him, and he said he was going to change it. And he was going to change it. He said he had, when sleeping before, he changed it to in sleep or something like that, or something. Yeah, that's what he said he was going to do.
This morning, still when.
Is it still when? Oh, that's terrible. I don't know. Okay. Makes a very big difference, and it's suddenly the paragraph makes sense when before it is actually very hard to make sense of. It obviously cannot be mindful while you sleep. Even if you're an arahant, you can't be mindful while you sleep. And so, absolutely.
Like in that Sandaka Sutta.
Yeah.
That when sleeping you cannot know anything.
Right.
Venerable Ananda used that sutta.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I can't remember now what you mean, but anyway, whatever.
I remembered this morning when I was looking for that.
Yeah.
So that makes
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having such good memory. That's really, really nice that you have that. You remember these things. That's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Molly? Yeah. You have to use the microphone, Molly. Yeah.
Ajahn, you said that it's very important to develop metta and compassion along the way.
Yeah.
Can you suggest ways of making it easier to develop metta and compassion to oneself? Why is it so hard when it's directing it to yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think if you keep on doing it to others, it will also affect yourself eventually. But it is not. You just have to appreciate yourself more. You have to see the good qualities in yourself. Here you are doing nice things, coming to Dhammaloka Center, being very helpful, and being really, being a really good person, keeping the 5 precepts, sometimes keeping the 8 precepts. And that's amazing. And sometimes we don't understand how amazing that is, how wonderful it is. But also have more compassion. Because when you have compassion in the world, you tend to feel really good. You feel good about yourself naturally because you are very forgiving of the other people. And being forgiving and non-judgmental tends to reduce the sense of, sometimes tends to give you more self-worth in a sense, because it means you are accepting of other people. And the moment you are accepting of other people, you also become more accepting of yourself as well. So be incredibly non-judgmental. Understand that nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone is trapped. Everyone is a victim. Everyone is walking in darkness. They don't know what they're doing. If someone does something bad, feel sorry for them. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah, have forgiveness straight away. Have compassion straight away, because actually all they are doing is doing things that lead to their own suffering. That's all they're doing. No one wants to suffer, and yet here they are doing things that lead to suffering, even though they want to be happy. So absolutely you should have compassion. If someone is shouting at you, don't get upset. Have compassion for them. That's really hard, right? But that's kind of the idea. That's the level you want to be here. Because it's not about you. If someone is shouting to you, it's got nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. Yeah, what has it got to do with you? No one should be shouting for you. Would Ajahn Brahm ever shout to you? No, regardless of what you do, he wouldn't shout to you, yeah? Even if you killed somebody right here, and I know you're not going to kill anyone, Molly, not anytime soon anyway. Even if you killed someone, he wouldn't shout at you, yeah? He would say, oh, poor Molly, she is really upset today. Something like that, yeah? He would never shout at you. And whose opinions matter? Ajahn Brahm's opinion or some scallywag who kind of, who says something bad to you, does something? People don't know what they're doing here. Don't worry if someone treats you badly. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with them. And the moment you understand it's got to do with them, at that moment you can have compassion instead. It's actually, the ideas are very simple. The ideas are very kind of straightforward. Just have to implement them again and again and again. And gradually your mind turns around, yeah? And then one day you kind of feel, wow, I have compassion now for pretty much for everyone. This is what you do. And then you will have compassion for yourself, because you realize that you too are stuck. Yeah, you too are a victim of your past. You too make mistakes sometimes, not because you want to make mistakes, but because actually it is out of control. Yeah, and then you have compassion for yourself, and then on top of that, you think, wow, all of this conditioning from the past, past lives, I have no idea what was going on. Still, I'm able to keep the 5 precepts. Yay! Hooray me! Yeah, I'm doing really well. Actually, yeah, I try to be kind. I try to be helpful. And I know you're a very helpful person, yeah? And, this is one of the great things about being part of a group of people like this. People are generally really nice and helpful, and what a wonderful thing that is. And so you learn to forgive others, then you forgive yourself. Appreciate yourself, then you start appreciating others. These things kind of go together. There isn't really any separation. So when you see, that's one way of doing it. Another thing to do is to always remember that there's much more suffering in people than sometimes meets the eye. People put up a front, people have a facade, people pretend that everything is great. If you ask someone, how are you? They always say good. It means nothing. Yeah, it means absolutely zilch. It's a completely empty set of words. Yeah, if they are completely miserable, they will still tell you they are good. Yeah, regardless of what happens. And so remember that there's always suffering there, and people are often they live well despite that suffering. That's kind of the miracle, yeah, that they actually do well despite the pains and the sufferings and problems of life. That is the amazing thing. So remember that. There's always suffering behind the facade, always suffering behind that brave face, yeah? Always suffering. And like you see sometimes the famous and the wealthy people in the world, and it's often so much suffering behind those glossy facades. You really don't want to be those famous or wealthy people. There's so much dukkha and problems and what have you. Being an ordinary person is actually a great blessing, because you can just be ordinary, just do the ordinary things in life. And so just use these ideas, develop them again and again and again. The trick is to be persistent and committed to developing these ideas. That is the hard part. So do that. Is that helpful? Yeah? Okay, good. Great. Okay, anything else? Anyone?
Thank you, Ajahn. How does one continue to develop contentment and then let go of when there's pain in the body?
Yeah.
Do you try and just look at it with kindness, or because when there's pain in the body, aversion arises to that pain.
You mean like chronic pain, or
could be chronic pain, or pain in the knee if you're meditating, or something.
If you have pain in the knee when you're meditating, then change your posture. Yeah. Okay. Don't. I mean, those kind of pains, the pains that are overcomable, overcome them. Like you have pain in the knee, pain in the back, whatever, change posture, do something else. If there's medication that can help you to overcome pain, if you have an illness, use the medication. So do what you can to overcome it. Don't be more heroic than is required. There's enough pain in life as there is, you know. But sometimes there is pain that actually is, some people have chronic pains and it's actually very hard to overcome. And in those cases, you just are going to have to accept it. You're going to have to be content with that pain. That is really difficult. It's a big, big challenge for people with chronic pain. But that is, I think, probably the only solution for them. Because that desire to overcome it actually makes it far worse. But the moment you can be content with it and accept it for what it is, then you can at least be reasonably relaxed with it. And that's kind of,
Thank
but
you.
it's tough, yeah.
Sorry, just come to my mind. I just don't link. You know. You see, Ajahn Brahmali, contentment is the Buddha's tool, you know, to help us to be happy, isn't it?
The Buddha's tool?
A tool, you know, given by the Buddha to us to help us to be happy, you know, to be contented. You know. So these are all tools. The other one, I was just thinking of the 8 winds. You know, the Buddha was telling us, do not be swayed by the 8 winds too. These are all related tools, isn't it?
The 8 what?
The 8 winds.
Winds, okay, winds. Okay,
praise, blame, profit, loss, do not be swayed. So
Yeah.
these are all the tools, these related tools to help us up ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the 8 winds are kind of the positives and negatives
that's
of worldly
related
life.
to all this.
Avoid those. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, excellent. Yeah, all related to each other. Yeah. Okay, so let us carry on a little bit more because we're not going very far. So you are more than welcome. If anyone needs to leave, please just feel free to leave at any time. Of course, the doors are open and there's no red marks against your name or anything like that. So let's have a quick look, maybe at the first defilement. It's actually 4:20 already. Maybe that's a bad idea to start with the first defilement because we kind of get halfway into it and then we can't finish it. Let's not do that. Let's instead, let's just have a bit more discussion if anyone wants to discuss a bit more, and then we kind of come to this next time. I'll be here in 2 weeks again, then we can carry on. So that's kind of good news. It's the first time I'm here 2 weeks, 2 of these in a row for last I don't know how long. So. So, are there any questions from online, by the way? No questions from online. Okay, good. So, yes, please, Vincent. Yeah. Yeah.
For the blind people, do they have 5 hindrances?
Where do the 5 hindrances come from? When you are a baby, you don't have them. Yes, and actually, you probably have read the suttas because that's actually in the sutta. They are the baby not having them. Yeah, it's in the I think the Chula Malunka Sutta or maybe Mahamalunka Sutta actually. And what the Buddha says, he gives the answer right there in the sutta. He says that there are underlying tendencies waiting to come out. When that baby becomes large enough, those tendencies will manifest, and that baby will attach and hold on and grasp and desire and cry and get angry and have tantrums and do all of these kind of things as a consequence of those underlying tendencies. So they come from the past life. You bring these things with you from the past, and because you didn't take that opportunity in your past life, you have them in your present life. And if you don't take the opportunity now, you will have them again in your future life. And in your future life, you don't know if there's going to be any Buddhism around. Looking at the state of Buddhism in the world, looking pretty dicey. So this is your chance. Overcome those defilements now. Now you have the chance. You come back next time, there's no Buddhism around, and maybe you get born in Afghanistan. Maybe you become a Muslim, and then they say, go out, do this, do that. Or maybe you get born in a mafia family and they say, go and steal and extort and whatever have you. And then you have no choice because your family says you have to do it. You're going to do it, guaranteed, because your family, you love your family and they tell you the truth, obviously. Of course they don't, but that's what you think, And so you do what they say. And so this is the problem with conditioning in life. We have an opportunity to overcome these problems. Once that opportunity is gone, we don't know when it comes back again. Now is the chance. And if you have 1 second left to live, use that 1 second wisely.
So it only happened in Kama Loka. not in other realm, only in the samsara, in the human realm?
Yeah, well, it happens in many different realms, because these defilements are there in all the sensual realms where they have the five senses. You don't have these things, obviously, when it comes to the Brahma Loka, where the Brahmas are, because they are equivalent to the jhanas, but all the other realms have these hindrances. And they are concerning. I mean, this all comes, ties in with what I was talking about on Friday night. Did you hear my talk on Friday night, Vincent? You didn't hear? You missed out. Okay, so go back and listen to my talk on Friday night, and that was all about the idea of no free will. Yeah, free will is an illusion from a Buddhist point of view, and that is a very kind of concerning thing. If there's no free will, it means that whatever you do in the future, wherever you go, is all just because of cause and conditions. So however these cause and conditions push you, that is what you're going to do. That's what lack of free will actually means. And once you understand that, it's like, help, yeah? And now I think I have all these good cause and conditions there. Let me take this opportunity, because you have no idea what's going to happen in the future. It feels like we are in charge. It feels like we are charting a course through samsara, heading in the right direction. But that's the illusion of a self. The reality is that we are pushed from behind by cause and conditions. They are the ones that make us do things, and then the self kind of takes credit. Yeah, for if you do something good, the self takes credit, and if you do something bad, the self blames you. That's what all the self does. It's an afterthought in a way, but actually, it's all of these things pushing you, and that is actually, if that is true. Yeah, and according to the Buddhist teachings, as I understand them, it is true. It is a very concerning thing. And the consequences are, it is incredibly urgent. Now I have the chance, I have to take it. I don't know when the cause and conditions are going to be as suitable as they are right now. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen next time around. And so, so these things are... So this is what I would call right view, and this is why right view is so incredibly important on this path, because it may give you that sense of inspiration and urgency right now. I got to do something. Yeah.
What about those people who are born blind or deaf? Do they have this five hindrance?
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course. Of course.
The blind
because
people born blind.
Yeah, if you are born blind and deaf, then when someone when you get some pain or whatever, then you get desires coming up, or you still want to eat nice food because you can still taste. So there's the other senses are going to manifest, and as long as the other senses are there, that those desires and it will manifest through those other senses. So it's not so much about how many senses you have. It has more to do with the inclination of your mind. And if your inclination of the mind is towards having ill will, then that ill will manifest in different ways. Even just the way you think about things, it will manifest in that way. Yeah, you will still have a family and think, oh, they don't love me, they are nasty or whatever, and then you will have ill will towards your people around you or whatever. So these things will manifest regardless of whether you have any of these senses. That's the problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Just microphone coming. Yeah.
Ajahn Brahmali, there's a lot of there's some, I don't know what you call it. Actually, now I'm going blank. There's some beliefs around that, like, you make the decisions of what you want to experience before you come down to Earth, and Earth being a learning planet as such. Where would that come into with cause and?
Well, I don't think I think you make a decision indirectly through your attachments. Your attachments. What two things drive the rebirth process, One of them is obviously the karma that you have. The karma will decide whether you can be reborn as a human or a devata or a ghost or whatever. And then your attachments will then drive your mind in a certain direction. Why is it that we tend to get reborn in the same family? And the reason is because of the attachments to those people. And so the mind kind of directs itself in that way. So are you directing yourself? Not really. The attachments are so deep-seated that it actually directs itself, whether you want to or not. It goes in that direction. And so the idea that you can kind of channel your rebirth, I think that is a massive exaggeration usually. Is being reborn here, is it a kind of a learning experience? It depends on how you use it. For some people it is a learning experience because they are wise, so they use it for learning, but many people don't use it that way, and they use it for the opposite almost, for de-learning, as a de-learning experience. They become more stupid. So it depends on how you use it. It is not a given that it is a learning experience. And so use your human existence wisely, then it becomes a learning experience. You understand to live with, be kind, be generous, be compassionate, forgiveness, all these kind of things, be wiser. And then you're on the right track. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I just had a question with the locations. Is the idea to just have absolute silence in those locations, be away from people?
The idea is to have a kind of a silent environment as much as you possibly can. But more important is often the entanglement that you have with people. People tend to entangle you. People bring up emotions. People bring up attachments. People bring up all kind of problems. So it's more important to be people-free than it is actually to be completely silent. And generally speaking, if you have some, the wind is noisy in the trees or whatever, it's not a big problem usually in meditation practice. But having lots of people around, making a kind of a big, lots of noise or whatever, that actually is problematic, and it tends to draw you out of yourself. So people are really the problem, or civilization, or all the kind of pleasures of the world and all the things that we are seeking in the world. That is really the biggest issue. So absolute silence you will never get anyway. If you search for absolute silence, you're going to have a big problem. Unless you go to a sensory deprivation chamber, and then after a short while you go crazy because you can't deal with it. So that's backfired as well. Anyways, good. Wow, 4:30 exactly. That's amazing. That's maybe that's a sign that we shouldn't have any more questions. I don't know. Is there any? Please, you're more than welcome to ask another question if you want to. Otherwise, we will call it a day. Is there any last questions from anyone? Last comments? Everyone happy? Okay, wonderful, marvelous. Let's just pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha.